So, welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
I'm Pirella.
And Oz with the overalls today is on the ones and twos, fam. How you doing?
Good.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How was your weekend and wherever you're at?
Why are you ridiculous? Like, why do you say it like that? You instill mystery and like more like weirdness in it when you say things like that. You're so like.
We'll have to work on the weirdness, but the mystery sells, fam. Okay.
And we're not Hollywood.
We are today after that slap from, your boy Will Smith over there smacking the shit out of Chris Rock. The first question for you is, fam, real or fake?
Fam, are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. Everybody wants to know, real or fake on that smack?
I've said it as much. It's fake. I don't believe it's real. I don't believe anything Hollywood does is without some PR or some insight, because that's what they're there for. And if you watch some of the clips, they were mentioning Ukraine all the time. They were mentioning civilians all the time. They were mentioning so much propaganda the whole time. And one of the godfathers, I forget which one it was, had a Ukrainian little flag and said, "God bless Ukraine." Like, it's such bullshit. They completely, the whole point of Hollywood is to embed it all with propaganda. And what irritates me about this whole thing is I got to give it up to Hollywood, because the ratings of that whole entire show sucked. Like, everything about it sucked, but people are still talking about it. And people are still talking about it because of that incident. People wouldn't have been talking about it very much without that incident. And so, like, now we're at a situation where this is all you're going to be hearing for another week until the next distraction comes. And this is how America operates. This is what it is. America is just a military base with a production company. And that's what they are. And it's just all theater. I just don't, and who cares? At the end of the day, who cares? We have people who are homeless. We're waging a proxy war with Russia. We have Hunter Biden's involvement in Biolabs. We have like so many things going on. And I understand people want to sort of a respite from it, but for too long, we've taken a respite from it. Like, for too long, America's been so highly just distracted. This is what they live off, your distraction. And you just continue to perpetuate it by falling for the next little gaffe that comes in. If I really was pissed at someone, I would punch them, not slap them in the very theatrical stage theater, stage combat way that like, it was just no.
But it was a bitch slap. So that's something to remember. And fam, just because it was in the front cover, I don't know if you know this now, fam, but I'm a newspaper guy. And it was just on the cover, of course, this morning of the paper.
I'm gonna cancel that subscription.
No, you're not. And I love the subscription. I get it every day. And
I'm gonna tell Steve.
It's a serious newspaper over here, fam. I got my paper on Saturday, and right here on the cover, look at it. Biden's having pizza with the troops, fam. Serious stuff we're talking about over here. Right there, you can see him with the slice. It looks like pepperoni. And you can see all the fake smiles all around him. What did you say? A military base with a production company? There you go. Right there.
I mean, yeah, fam. I don't know. Like, it's just so dumb. So dumb. I don't know what to tell you. What?
You want to roll right into it, fam?
Yeah, I guess we can roll right into it.
Was there something else you want to talk about? Did you want to talk more about the smack?
No.
I didn't even know the Oscars were on. I didn't even know they were on. The only thing that gave me attention that they were on was hearing Sean Penn talk about it, you know what I'm saying, on CNN to act all serious. By the way, Sean Penn's doing a story on what's going on in the Ukraine front lines from Warsaw, Poland. Okay. Just to point that out there. He's in Poland talking about what's happening on the front line. And the donkey even was so stupid where he said the fact that these Ukrainian people are taking bullets for us. It's like, they are just too much.
Well, I mean, they are essentially, right? I mean, if you think about what the U.S. and NATO are doing, is they're using Ukraine.
Yep.
to wage war on Russia. And people don't realize this. They they're like, well, we're not even really at war. It's like, yeah, it's a proxy war. It's like the United States doesn't even have to put people there. They don't even have to send troops. They don't even have to send drones. They can just get the Ukrainians to do their work for them. And there's a cartoon that someone just shared with me on Facebook, and I'll have to share it with you guys on Twitter. It just has like a very simple graphic of what this is like. And like, Russia isn't bluffing. This is real, and what's happening is real, and we're using Ukrainians for this, and this is nothing about their democracy. So it's hilarious that people don't realize, like, this is what America is. This is what the United States government and the State Department does. And yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. And if you haven't had a chance to check it out, I was on George Galloway's show yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah.
This was yesterday.
Fam. At 3:00 Eastern time, 8 p.m. UK Pacific. You can find the link on Twitter, but it's on the mother of all talk shows on his YouTube. So check it out. And my hair was messed up at the top, but yeah.
With Moots. The mother of all talk shows. Fam, one thing we don't have in the file today. I didn't know what kind of stories I want to talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday, there was a lot of things out on Twitter, right? Like a lot of footage. And I think there's people from behind the lines who are actually in the war zones getting a hold of footage and stuff like that are sending stuff out to multiple independent journalists, and they're just cracking open their emails and they're just putting stuff out there, which is kind of crazy right now because you're seeing this stuff that's just so disturbing. I didn't bring it for the folder today, fam, but I know you saw the systematic shooting of the legs, right?
Yeah.
And at first it was alleged Ukrainian military doing it to Russians and whatnot. And it seems like they're actually taking it and saying that, they're trying to condemn it now, saying that it's awful that it's doing that. But these are the tactics they're going to be left with right now. The second wave of the war is going on where the Russians are sending in a lot of personnel now. They have all these areas surrounded. Another reason why Sean Penn is in Poland is because had he stayed in Kiev or Kyiv, if however you want to pronounce it, I say Kiev, the peaceful corridors to get out are only controlled by the Russians. So his chicken ass went to Poland and stood over there. But now that they have them surrounded, Gonzalo Lira talked about it. Now they're going to send in more troops to get in there and whatnot because they can't continue to do an air raid because the Azov battalion and the Ukrainian militias are staying very close to residential areas. So to try to hit them from the air, they're going to kill a lot of people. And they're going to use that as, propaganda to show, oh, look at these bloody murderers of these Russians. So now it's the phase 2 part where they're going to go in there on the ground and attempt to get them. However, when you have a ground attack, you will happen to see shit like we saw with those Russian soldiers over there getting shot in the leg. And it's bloody, bloody war. It's disgusting. Not to mention what they're doing to their own citizens still in the Donbass region who are trying to just escape and get out of these areas. They're not letting them leave. They're actually using them as shields. So a lot of scary stuff that we saw over the weekend that we're really not going to get into too far too deep today. But it was a crazy weekend all in all, fam. I also didn't put Ford Fisher's video. You saw that, right? I mean, oh my... I think we might have to end the show with it. They're calling for World War III, and it's State Department talking heads and like a bunch of morons that who knows? Some of them may be Nazis. Like we don't know. Like, but it's that it's being led by like all these organizations, supported by all these organizations. Why would you think that that's something that is not weird? Where is all the protests for Afghanistan? Where are all the protests for all these countries that have like massive genocide going on? They're calling this a genocide, and they're completely leaving out the part of the Russians that were being murdered. But it's disgusting. I mean, these people, they've lost their mind. It's kind of like with COVID, right? Like they're just like cheering for whatever they're told to cheer for. Hold that thought. Is everything good with our Rockfin? Is it rolling? YouTube is rolling. Is everything's good with the Rockfin?
So another thing I wanted to say was the Somalia battalion of the Donetsk People's Republic was raised its flag earlier, I think today, and that was just to signal just the coming of the Russians and like how the Russians have taken over that part of Mariupol, and that was filmed yesterday on Sunday. So if you look for the video, it's all over like Telegram and RT and everywhere else. But Russia is taking over, as Pasta said. Russia's taking over a lot. Like he said, they're taking over. They've conquered Mariupol as of this weekend, and a lot of people are welcoming these soldiers with open arms, saying thank you. We're happy that the tyranny has ended. So there's a lot of like propaganda that talks about how it's the other way around, that, you know, they don't want the Russians there, that they're supporting Ukraine. That's entirely false. There's a lot of people, especially in these eastern regions of the country, that support Russia, especially because they were bombed and shelled for the last 8 years and just severely mistreated. And that video, as you were talking about with the, you know, them shooting the Russians in the legs, some of those people died as a result of those injuries, and they weren't giving them any help. So that
they were letting them bleed out. Yeah.
Yeah, how these people are. And many, if in the footage, if you look at it, because even RT wasn't going to show the footage really, because it's too graphic. But if you look at the footage yourself, you can see the blue arm that some of these people are, like the Azov members. So this is who these people are supporting when they're like, stop genocide. It's just, yeah.
It was some sad scenes. But, you know, the whole thing we get to explain today is the narrative management that's going on. The way it's all just an act, fam, right? Like, and the mainstream media is in on it. Like I said, I saw this on Saturday, and remember, when I spoke to you, I said, fam, I'm going to start the folder already, because they're already starting with this whole, I don't think it's a rehabilitation, but it's definitely a powdering, a puffing up of, you know, Biden and his administration and what they're doing. So the very first clip we have over here, number 6, is President Biden pizza party with troops in Poland, barber shop too. And fam, believe it or not, this article was in TMZ. Not only was it written by the AP over here to the Associated Press, pizza with the troops over here, but TMZ does it. And you could just put this in. You'll see a lot of outlets covering this. They're trying to make him look like the normal guy, you know, fam. He's like the regular old Joe. President Biden's adding some spice to his visits in Poland, because while he's next door to the war in Ukraine, and he's putting jalapenos on his pizza and hanging out with the troops, fam, right? So that's the whole thing. He puts jalapeno on his pizza. He laughs.
I put jalapeno on my pizza. Oh, I'm just like Joe Biden. He's just like me. Do they think people are that stupid at this point? His approval rating is tanking day by day. Like, no matter how much PR they're doing, people are looking at the prices of fuel, the prices of goods, the crumbling infrastructure that has plagued this country pre-pandemic and now with this, and they're like, no, screw you, Joe. Oh, by the way, to all the progressives, he's privatizing healthcare, Medicare in particular. He's privatizing Medicare. So.
Oh, well, at least he likes jalapenos in his pizza. He can really talk to the cool people at the barbershop, because, you know, that's where the real conversation takes place, at the barbershop.
True.
And while he's doing that, Jill Biden is visiting St. Jude's Hospital, meets with evacuated Ukrainian child cancer patients, fam. Like, they literally threw that in there. Like, what about all the Yemenis patients? Oh, wait, first of all, they're not even allowed to come here, right? Yeah. The Yemen, people from Yemen. What about people from Syria? Not allowed to come here. Libya?
Yeah.
No.
No, there's a protocol. You must be a, what did that reporter call? Blonde haired, blue eyed Ukrainian. Like, and even when they put the pictures of the refugees coming in, the Ukrainians, one of the photographers put a picture, and it was like a one brown family, and people are like, this isn't even, they're not even like, it's like one person, because they got so much backlash because there's so many people escaping, and some of these people are Romani, and different other ethnic groups, but like, you know, but they're completely like, it's just so disgustingly hypocritical. I posted a picture, you know, of a Palestinian boy with the rocks, right? That the Israelis say, just kill them. And then the comparison with a Ukrainian little girl, like a teenager with a rifle. And like, because, you know, they were going through that whole thing with the Granny Valentina, who was like 80 years old and had like a gun. And they were like, oh, these women, they're preparing for fighting the Ukrainians against the evil Russians. And they juxtapose this, right, while simultaneously still vilifying Palestinians. And it's really, it's not just about the race, because there is an element of that. It's about the power that Russia has. And so they have to vilify Russia. And Ukraine is just perfectly falling in line with NATO and Western interests. So they have to amplify it. Of course, there is that element in the global South. That's why you see that contrast. But at the same time, it's like the hypocrisy, Pasta, is just it's crazy. Yeah. You have to point it in their faces. And some people got mad that I pointed it out. And I'm like, no, they think that people in the global South and in West Asia or the Middle East are uncivilized. They think we have to civilize it. You know, Europeans are civilized. Like, you got to civilize these people. And so, and that mentality still exists when you're a progressive and you tell these people who are a Christian country that they have to accept, you know, abortion, that they have to accept this and that. Like, that's still that mindset.
Yeah. It's funny too, when you hear people also say, well, you know what, Fee, at the end of the day, I'd still like it here better than anywhere else. It's a lot better here. It's a lot safer here. Why is it safer here? You know what I'm saying? Are we trying to say that people of Asian descent or Middle Eastern descent or Latin descent, right, or are they just have different genes than us? They're more, you know, prone to hostility. I mean, you know, and robbery and all these other things and crime. Or is it the fact that we keep on removing, you know, their leaders, putting in these dictators that make sure that countries stay unstabilized, so we can then extract all the resources out and also force austerity measures on top of the populations and wherever we're conquering? That is the reason. And that's why, you know, when I hear people saying, I still, you can say stuff here that you can't say over there. I'm like, yeah, but there's a reason for that. And a lot of times, I hate to say it, the reason is our foreign policy, United States Western foreign policy. It's not the best foreign policy. It's all there to serve a small group of people, the corporations. And it's very different than the World War II fascism, where maybe the countries told the corporations what to do. Now it's clearly the corporations are telling the countries what to do rather than vice versa, right? The countries used to say, hey, corporations, you need to do this. Now the corporations are going, hey, you need to do that. And so when they prop up a boogeyman or invade a country, they have dollars and cents on their minds, and they're going after stuff. So it's crazy. It did say that it was in Tennessee, fam. The First Lady traveled to St. Jude Children's Hospital in Tennessee on Friday to meet with Ukrainian children with cancer and their families fleeing the war and seeking treatment in the U.S. So they pulled out all the stops. Biden's eating pizza. He's talking with jalapenos, talking to the guys in the barbershop on base in Poland right there. Jill, you know, she's going to see Ukrainian kids with cancer. It's just, you know, it's there, fam. They fluffed it up. They lifted it up. They did what they normally do. And then never asked any serious questions. Remember we played the video with Biden getting in the car and all the reporters there? When you brought that clip that one time, it's like, what are you asking him? Like, you're not even asking. There's no pushbacks. There's no serious questions. It's all just fluff. That's it. Now, I didn't want to go through the whole speech, fam, because I just don't want to do it, because you can go look through the blue check marks and you can see people who you used to think that had a little intelligence in their brain have lost it all completely. Biden made a great speech, Joe Scarborough and Mika and all these other people. Biden's speech was great, even Jen Rubinstein. It was amazing. This is my president. I mean, how long do people think they can be fake and phony and lie? I got a little clip over here.
As long as they can.
Yeah, as long as they can. But this is the place that got a little craziness. I don't know if Biden went off script, if he was supposed to, but the very last line, here's like a minute and 20 seconds, so you won't get too nauseated from Biden's just speech where he was so American in Poland. Go ahead, Oz.
My message to the people of Ukraine is a message I delivered today to Ukraine's foreign minister and defense minister, who I believe are here tonight. We stand with you, period. American forces are in Europe, not in Europe, to engage in conflict with Russian forces. American forces are here to defend NATO allies. Yesterday I met with the troops that are serving alongside our Polish allies to bolster NATO's frontline defenses. The reason we want to make clear is their movement on Ukraine don't even think about moving on 1 single inch of NATO territory. A dictator bent on rebuilding an empire will never erase a people's love for liberty. Brutality will never grind down their will to be free. Ukraine will never be a victory for Russia, for free people refuse to live in a world of hopelessness and darkness. We will have a different future, a brighter future, rooted in democracy and principles, hope and light, of decency and dignity, of freedom and possibilities. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
For God's sake, fam, this man cannot remain in power. Okay. I'm gonna let you take. I'll let you take the first crack at this before I read this, whatnot, because immediately, fam, they went into damage control. How do we fix this up? Did Biden just say that he wants regime change? We got to make believe that the United States doesn't want regime change. Go ahead.
First of all, again, the United States is projection 101. I mean, they call everybody a dictator, but we live in the biggest dictatorship because we don't have fair elections. And I keep saying this, and I still think people don't understand. We don't have fair elections. You have pantomime elections. What Biden called Nicaragua's elections is what we have. That's what we have. We have pantomime elections where you pretend to vote for your select candidate. Your candidates are selected by these powerful people. That's it. It's by the State Department. So we live in essentially an oligarchy, which is essentially a tyrannical, authoritarian place. And more you're seeing that. It's just that they distract you and give you a little bit of crumbs to make you feel like you live in anything else. But it's really this form of like kind of Stockholm syndrome, because you do need, they're like, you need us. And we're going to continue taking stuff away, but we'll give you a little bit more. And we'll continue dangling the carrot. So that part. The other part of his ridiculous speech is this obvious call for regime change. He's calling for regime change blatantly by saying this man cannot remain in power, and saying that Russia, Ukraine will never be a victory for Russia, even though right now Russia is winning this proxy war that the United States has pushed on them. So that's a fact. And further, when he's saying this, he's saying the quiet part out loud. He's literally saying, yeah, we're going to remove this. And this is not what somebody like, say, Barack Obama would do. Somebody that kind of fluffs it up even more. Donald Trump, sure, they expected it. They would have gone after him and called him, oh, Donald Trump is being reckless and blah, blah, blah. But with Biden, they're going to have to do damage control. And so that's what Blinken went on and did after the fact, is some damage control. Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at the AP, what it says. Biden on Putin, this man cannot remain in power. And I'd like to say that, fam, that you're right 100% on the nose, that they always want regime change. This is what they do. This is what they always do. So this is from Warsaw, Poland, which is the capital. President Joe Biden said Saturday that Vladimir Putin cannot remain in power, dramatically escalating the rhetoric against the Russian leader after his brutal invasion of Ukraine. Look at the have they still make sure that they kind of word it like where, the brutal invasion of Ukraine. Even as Biden's words rocketed around the world, the White House attempted to clarify, and soon after, Biden finished speaking in Poland that he was not calling for a new government in Russia. A White House official asserted that Biden was not discussing Putin's power in Russia or regime change. The official was not authorized to comment by name and spoke on the condition of anonymity. Said Biden's point was that Putin cannot be allowed to exercise his power on his neighbors over his neighbors or the region. The White House declined to comment on whether Biden's statement about Putin was part of his prepared remarks. So they won't even comment on that. Like, fam, did he say that, or did he go off script? No comment. No comment and whatnot. But he is calling for regime change, plain and simple. That's what we always do. We always try to remove leaders all the time. We have everybody in place that we want that's going to be friendly and helpful to our government. So, I mean, fam, you put up a tweet. I'll let you read it right over here so you can get that out and talk a little bit about it. Go ahead.
So Anthony Blinken actually came out and spoke and said that Biden did not mean regime change, that Biden was emotional after having spent the day with troops, and then that, what he said was understandable. But remember that Joe Biden also called Vladimir Putin a killer and a warmonger, which is very rich of any U.S. president in recent history to call anyone a warmonger without looking in the mirror first. But yeah, that's what happened. Blinken was out there doing damage control because people like Anthony Blinken and their foreign policy aren't exactly as direct as others, like say Pompeo. Anthony Blinken pretends to care. He's on Sesame Street. Yeah. He's like, we're just, giving democracy to the world. We don't do things like regime change. He literally said that the other day. We don't, Russia's putting puppets in. So they do these things that Biden said out loud without actually telling you what they're doing. That's the problem with a liberal administration, is that they do the same thing neocons do, but they just fluff it up. And I think that's worse in some aspects because that you don't know what they're doing. They're telling you one thing while doing another. And so him calling for regime changes, this tweet that I have here, is saying the quiet part out loud. And, the difference that we have to understand here is when Biden is saying this, the world isn't like looking at him like, oh, wow, yeah, America, NATO, independence, we're gonna get Ukraine out. They're not supporting this. The world is not supporting this. China is not supporting this. India is not supporting this. Pakistan, not at all. The vast majority of South America is not at all. Central America, nope. You have also West Asia, a lot of these countries drastically affected by U.S. interventionism. They're not supporting this. So the shift is here, right? The tide has changed. And this is not going to go well for the United States. Everybody's kind of like, what the hell is Biden doing? This is it's brash. It's just so arrogant to say this at this moment where China and the global South and all these nations have a geopolitical and economic interest. So that's essentially what I meant by that. And
by the way, even like the issues that's going on where MBS from the kingdom, the Saudi kingdom, is thinking about taking, a digital yuan for their oil. That's kind of crazy too, as well, because if he did something like that, that would be like the ultimate persona non grata. Did you get to read your tweet from slide 14? Perfect. So it's good. Well, let's prove, fam, that there is regime change. There's always regime change down the pipe. They always got a man, they tap him on the shoulder, or a woman, and they tapped him on the shoulder. Remember the Navalny stuff? They want to act like why were you supporting Navalny so much? Because you thought there was a potential for regime change and you can get your guy in. This is from Amnesty International. You'll see that picture of Navalny walking out, getting some handshakes and whatnot. We've talked to people in Russia, Mark Sloboda in particular, who says that like Navalny has no support. Like very few people know about him. It's a small niche group. There is no support for him like there is for President Putin. So I had to put in there from the Amnesty International where they had the censorship and freedom of expression little tag up there, please. President Putin, free Alexei Navalny. This is them calling for that. And let's not forget that, Bernie Sanders retweeted and liked Navalny, AOC liked Navalny. Alexei Navalny, a prominent Russian opposition figure and anti-corruption activist. Listen to this. He's going to jail on corruption charges, by the way. Unlawfully detained and imprisoned for 2.5 years. He is ill-treated in detention, including constant surveillance and psychological pressure. He must be freed immediately and unconditionally. And here's from the article itself. On August 20th, 2020, Alexei Navalny fell seriously ill during a flight to Moscow. Experts for several countries later concluded that he had been poisoned and prohibited military-grade nerve agent from Novichok, from the Novichok family on 22nd August. He was evacuated to Germany for treatment, unconscious and in critical condition. Navalny returned to Russia on 17 January 2021 and was immediately taken into custody. Russian authorities accused him of failing to report to his probation officer while receiving life-saving treatment in Germany. A court in Moscow ruled to imprison Alexei Navalny for 2 years and 8 months, sequentially reduced by 2 months, for the violations of terms of a suspended sentence. The prohibition was established as a result of a previous connection that the European Court of Human Rights found arbitrary and manifestly unreasonable. So he had already had charges before, whatnot, some credit card fraud of some sorts with some European country. But the United States just try to make it look out like, oh, this guy he's Putin's adversary, and Putin's trying to poison him like he tried to poison the old Ukrainian president. Remember, they accused Putin of that too as well. They always accuse Putin of poisoning somebody. It's part of the propaganda. And the Sun just put out right over here how Putin tried to kill a rival, Alexei Navalny, by poisoning his pants, then jailed him on trumped-up charges. Despite being poisoned, then sent to a modern-day gulag, Vladimir Putin's arch critic will not be silenced.
There's so much on that. I can't even start.
It's just ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? They're just trying to, out of nowhere, and this guy's got no popularity whatsoever, fam. But you know what? He fits the bill as an American puppet. So they're trying to push him, and they're trying to use everything they can to make Putin look bad. Like Putin's the evil, tyrannical dictator jailing his opposition. And we do it everywhere. Lukashenko in Belarus, slide number 20. This is, I can never say her name, fam. Do you want to say her last name for me?
Sikhanouskaya?
Yeah, you're getting better at that. Over a phone call today, I assured POTUS that the people of Belarus are at the forefront of the battle for freedom, the battle between liberty and repressions. We also stand firmly with the people of Ukraine. I am confident that freedom and humanity will prevail.
She's not even...
Go ahead.
What is she talking about? Belarus is supporting Russia.
Yeah. Well, she's the one that supposedly that was the opposition to Lukashenko and had to flee the country and whatnot. And supposedly she's their little puppet.
Juan Guaido.
He's the Juan Guaido of Belarus.
You guys notice that there's Juan Guaidos everywhere?
Yeah.
Where's Guaido? You can find them everywhere. The US has these little puppets everywhere. It's just funny because they say that, the dictators are Russia and China and all these places, but it's like they have little puppets everywhere. It's hilarious. And none of them are anything, but they just get on the phone. There's a picture with them talking to some sort of US high-level official, whether it's Biden or somebody in the State Department or the White House. And then somehow they're like supposed to be somebody Americans care about, and Americans are like, yeah, save X person, free X person. It's like, hello, we have Julian Assange, we have Alex Saab, you have a bunch of people that are Mumia, you have a bunch of actual political prisoners, but somehow these State Department hacks are supposed to be your main concern.
Well, the Saudis have Hadi, right? Who's, United States backed, Saudi backed, whatever, Hadi. Hadi is supposedly the president of Yemen, can't live there, right? You know what I'm saying? Like the Houthis are after him. A lot of the tribes that are backed by the UAE, right? United Arab Emirates, UAE. They're after him and whatnot. So it's like Hadi can't even live there. So we say like Guaido is the Hadi of Venezuela because he can't even live there. You know what I'm saying? He's got to take off. It's like, I can't stay here anymore and whatnot. But they want you to believe that these guys are the leaders of this country just because Western media says so at the behest of the United States government. It's just crazy. Fam, you had a tweet over here?
Yeah. So just why are Americans not upset? Like, why are they not out in the streets? You would think like if this were any other country in the world, essentially especially any country in the global south, but even in Europe where they have, the yellow vests, the French have these protests. There's already been protests of truckers. We've talked about Italy. We've talked about Spain. France has been joining in the protests as well. So we have all these people protesting, but yet Americans should be demanding by the thousands why their gas prices are up and their food prices are rising. Because it is worth noting to everybody that this isn't because we are lacking the product. This is because of inflation, because of this self-created crisis by the US and NATO. This is affecting these particular nations, the working people of these nations. So why are they imposing sanctions? This is what America should be asking, right? Why is your country funding neo-Nazis when Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water? And I keep laughing because it's like, either you're going to be extremely angry or you're going to be like, this is a joke. We live in a cartoon. Like, what is happening? Because most people, instead of asking these very basic questions, like, why is our money going to this instead, of Medicare or whatever? Now we're privatizing Medicare while you're giving Ukrainians this. That's why I made that joke tweet about Biden giving Ukrainians healthcare, because they're more likely to give it to you, to them. So they're just becoming like, Americans just so easily fall in line with the next thing. Like, you've seen them post to the progressive with their profile pictures saying, I support XYZ, I stand with Ukraine, I stand with that. And anytime you bring up any sort of counterpoint to that, you're a Putin apologist, you're a Putin puppet. And I looked back at my Facebook at tweets or at posts that I had during Russiagate, which was, if you can believe it, 5 years ago. And I was getting called a Russian then. I mean, it's ridiculous, like how little progression and self-awareness some of these people have.
Absolutely. And I'm like looking at a tweet that you kind of put up too as well. It says, it's hilarious how outraged and concerned Americans are over the theatrical slapping, right? It's everything we're talking about. Like, and this one right here that you have in the deck too as well. It's like, where are the American citizens? Why are they so asleep? And I say this all the time, fam, because we have this kind of serious, real privilege, right? The war has never been brought home for us. The chickens haven't come home to roost yet. And when people have to fear for their lives of the attack of a missile, whatnot, like people all around the world do from United States imperialism, that might change a few things, right? And I'm not saying that we need this or I want this or I'm hoping that this happens, but it's a big reason why. I mean, there's got to be a reason why 14% of the people out there that are polled only really pay attention to foreign policy when it comes to voting for their elected figure. I mean, that's mind-blowing, especially since it takes about 60% of the budget up. It goes to the Pentagon. So when I say we can't have nice things, it's because we have to go and blow other things up. And it's just sad that people are just tuned out. Tuned out. Was that the term you used?
Yeah, tuned out, distracted, propagandized, you name it. And right along with this thing, fam, is, how they were painting this picture of Biden being such a great guy and Biden was talking so highly of NATO. Well, a lot of people don't know, and I recommend you go read this. It's a long article, but it's worth it. Historynet.com, about a story about how these particular NATO generals had served in the Third Reich. And I'm not going to go deep into it. I'm just going to let you guys read it for yourself because it's a really long article. But during the Cold War, these two German generals were among the few NATO commanders with direct experience fighting the Soviets and their allies, meaning they were fighting in the Third Reich against the Soviet Union and against the US, and then they became NATO generals. And this is just one aspect. We have talked multiple times about how the US has worked with neo-Nazis. The US has worked with these Wahhabis. The US has radicalized extremists and created them for their own interests, to advance their own interests, not caring about what happens after the fact. So this is nothing new. When they talk about NATO, NATO is just an extension of the US military. That's what they are. And that's why the US has such a close relationship to them. They should not have at all any sort of power. There's no solution other than to disband NATO. Such a power should not exist.
I agree. I totally agree, fam. I'd like to see more about this. I'm going to click on this and take a look. That's kind of interesting. Operation Paperclip, Annie Jacobsen. It's pretty much like the Nazi free agent draft. All these Nazis that, were scientists that were already had a lot of history of work and a body of work of sorts that the United States imperialists can get a hold of for future wars, is why they brought a lot of these people over. So they didn't really care that they were killing Jews or killing Russians and whatnot. All they cared about is that they can use their technology, their advancement, and their experiments for future wars. And that's what the United States does. I bet you they're going to do that same thing too, fam, but probably if they already haven't done it with Ukraine, with the Biolabs. They probably already got some Ukrainian scientists they've taken here and there that we will find out down the road. I guarantee you're going to hear like a very similar paperclip situation. What's the next little video of?
Okay, so just going right along those lines, this is what the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says, that any peacekeeping efforts from the European, Union, from NATO and the US, they don't trust it. They're not buying it. So this is kind of it's a little bit hefty of a video, but it's worth it. So because he goes over every single thing to remind everybody exactly why Russia is doing what they're doing and why the propaganda that you get that this is, Putin's war, that this is unprovoked, that the Ukrainians are winning this war, how all of that is complete bollocks.
Yeah, bollocks.
Bollocks.
We are witnessing unparalleled pressure within the EU campaign. By some European politicians, it is labeled a total war on Russia. It is not new. For more than 10 years, the EU has been demanding from the countries aspiring to join the Union full support of its foreign policy initiatives. These foreign policy initiatives have been increasingly anti-Russian. We see that Serbia is withstanding pressure from the EU to join the anti-Russia sanctions. President Vučić has spoken on this issue publicly many times, stressing that Serbia will be guided by its own national interests. There are few countries in Europe that can consider themselves to be sovereign and autonomous. And those who chose their national interest over joining sanctions have the right to be called truly sovereign, regardless of the possible size of those countries. We have been seeing the failure of diplomacy for the last many years. In February 2014, the EU played the role of a mediator between the president of Ukraine and the opposition. This was the epitome of diplomacy. And the next morning, the opposition spitted at this agreement and the European Union swallowed it. Then the diplomacy reached another height in February 2015 in Minsk. We all signed an agreement that put an end to war in the eastern Ukraine. This agreement opened the way to restore the territorial integrity of Ukraine by granting a special status to Donbass. The EU was an active part of reaching this diplomatic result, and the EU completely proved its ineffectiveness as an organization that is capable of implementing what has been put on paper. I have provided you with ample examples of when our diplomacy gains were destroyed by Western countries, and we have no grounds to believe them. They begin to count the events from February 24th, when President Putin announced the start of the special military operation. The long years of Russians being harassed in Ukraine, the long years when Russia appealed to NATO and the US about the unacceptability of further militarization of the territories at our borders, when we have been calling on them to prevent Ukraine from joining NATO, our call to stop establishing naval bases and biological labs in Ukraine. All of these are not mentioned. Their version of the events is that Russia started an operation against Ukraine out of the blue. They fail to see that Ukraine has been ignoring Minsk agreements for 8 years. It has been bombing cities, towns and villages, has been murdering innocent civilians. They forget that. NATO was a purely defensive alliance when it was created. Then we could understand where NATO's territory was. There was a Berlin Wall in concrete and it was countering the Warsaw Pact organization. Then NATO decided that they wanted to defend more territories. They moved their borders further to the east and now include the countries nobody ever even considered attacking. Mr. Stoltenberg has recently said NATO should be in charge of global security. That's where democracies turn into autocracy. We want NATO to get back to common sense. Now we have grounds to believe that the serious concerns which have to do with our root and legitimate interests are heard and understood.
So, very basic summary of what NATO is. And I think NATO should cease to exist, like I said already. But what he said was really important. It seeks to establish global dominance, right? And when you think about that in conjunction with the Fourth Industrial Revolution and what the World Economic Forum is seeking to do with this global dominance, you see NATO as a huge part of that. So it's something to pay attention to in terms of that. And I was talking to one of my other journalist friends, and we were talking about how, is this real? Is this pushback from Russia like a real pushback, like against this global dominance? And she agrees with me that we think it is. But at the same time, there's still things left to be seen, but that this is real. This is not something that is just theater, from what I'm seeing.
We're going to be with our good friend Terry in a couple of days, and we get to speak about these things because she has a very interesting point of view. And fam, I don't know. I'm still stuck on the fence because sometimes I think it is completely theatrics of sorts. Because the fact is that after him going in after some time, right now, I think there's going to be a justification, at least for the military heads, to sell NATO as still a relevant organization. So I think that is going to exist at the same time, though, understanding that he had to do something, and he probably should have done something from the get-go. In that video that you just played, Lavrov constantly says, you guys have it all wrong. It's like that tweet we read before, right? Putin's not, bombing Ukraine to start a war. He's bombing Ukraine to try to end one. It's been going on for quite some time. We saw what happened in Donetsk and Luhansk, and a lot of people just like to leave that out. So when you hear these blue check marks or these Ukrainian flags in their bio, Hollywood superstars, you start thinking to yourself, do you even know what the hell's going on over there? Hey, Sean Penn, what about what happened in 2014? Those people mean nothing to you? Joe Biden, go ahead and visit Ukrainian kids dying of cancer. What about the kids from Yemen? What about the kids from Syria? What about the kids from Libya? Those kids mean nothing. What about the kids from friggin' Honduras, right? What about those kids? What about them? They don't mean anything to you. That's why there is a very racial, kind of undertone about this whole situation where people can go, oh my God, Ukraine. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. And you don't have to look far, fam. You want to pick a war, any war. What about our sanctions in Afghanistan? What about our bombing in Somalia? Right? We can go on and on and on. But yet, in this situation, because they're told, I'm for the next thing, Ukraine. You don't see many flags out there on the streets, ladies and gentlemen. They're trying to lift this thing up as much as they can. They're another last shot. That's why I'm thinking that other things might be coming back into the fold, because this thing, in my mind, is starting to fail pretty miserably.
So fam, before we get on to the next section or the super raise, I think Oz added a couple things here.
I did. I added them because
you.
Yes, because Oz, is that something you added about Ukraine? Okay. I just added something in 25. Let me read the super raise too, because I really wanted to talk about this. I didn't throw it in the folder, but I really want to get your point of view on this because I think there's something more to it. So let me read the super raise and we'll digress back to the slap or the alleged slap. I have to give love to Trey Wright right off the bat. Before we read our first Super Ray fam, we got over 100 people. Thank you, Trey Wright. It is always appreciated on the couch. Hunter C, love you all, fam. Miss you, Fee.
Hunter, Trey.
Hunter. No, Coffee, miss you. Wants to know how you're doing. So does Gomez. So, fam, I put this into the folder real quick because I really wanted to talk about. These are 2 tweets. Why I put it up in our chat the other day with Grace and whatnot. Now, let's think for a second, fam. Let's just say it's more than a distraction for a second. Let's say that the smack, which we see front and center. I know I told you this, I'm a newspaper guy. Front and center, we have the smack right there. A lot of newspapers are doing that. It blew up the internet. You know, your brother put some stuff out there too as well. You can see the one in American, Japanese, or Australian, ones that went there. We went to the YouTube, me and Steve, to look at the context that was put in before it was said, the joke itself. Now this is an award show where you have a comedian that's there, whatnot. And, Jada does have that rare skin situation. It's called alopecia. Alopecia. Okay. I have rosacea, so I should know. Alopecia, rosacea, whatnot. That's why she's bald. Let's say that it's more than a distraction. What else could they be saying with this stuff? Because remember, Will Smith smacked somebody. He assaulted somebody. He remained there throughout the whole event. He was then won his award. Anybody else who did that, a common citizen, wouldn't the cops be walking in 10 minutes later to arrest them? Right?
Yeah. That's why I think it was staged, because normally you have extensive security.
Yes.
If somebody just gets up, unless you know that this is part of the show, this is part of the agenda. There's the presenters all have rehearsals prior to the event. A lot of people don't know that they have rehearsals prior to the event. So yeah, to me, it just seemed extremely just like what he's just going to walk up and they're just going to let him. Like, I mean, I get he's Will Smith, but at the same time, it's still, and also Jimmy Dore made a point, like just in the event of what literally happened, a comedian says something that you don't like, seeing Will Smith do that, are more comedians perhaps in danger of being slapped if somebody doesn't like what they say? I mean, this is like, you already have to deal with hecklers and all this stuff. I mean, this is something to think about too, that I thought was a good point that nobody was making, especially when you're a performer like he is. So I don't know. I mean, to me, it just seems ridiculous, because now you have all these people putting like their, these tweets about how alopecia and how, Jada Smith is standing with Black women and all of this stuff. And it's like, what about what's going on? People are like, it's just so ridiculous. So now people are going to talk about this for a week, right? And it's going to be the thing to talk about.
Well, here's the thing. Hear me out on this. Tell me what you think, because
Okay.
I remember this one comedian who did this thing, who had this whole stand-up bit, which was punch a Nazi in the nose. Like, it's okay to punch a Nazi in the nose. Just go punch a Nazi in the nose. Then later on, we were talking after having a couple of drinks, and some people were naming off some conservative people, and he was like, "Oh, that guy's a Nazi. Like Tucker Carlson's a Nazi." So I realized that, like, when you make it okay to punch a Nazi in the nose, right? Like, you kind of justify that. You can punch him in the nose as a Nazi, but then you can stretch it out what a Nazi is, right? You're now justifying violence. So our lawmakers right now over here, and this is from Grace Panetta, and this is something I saw last night. I really wasn't going to make anything of this, and I caught this right away, but I didn't retweet it, or I slept on it and thought about it. It's just a deleted tweet from Representative Ayanna Presley. And Ayanna says, "Alopecia Nation, stand up. Thank you, Will Smith. Thank you, Will Smith. Shout out to all the husbands who defend their wives living with alopecia in the face of daily ignorance and insults. Hashtag Oscars. Women with baldies are for real. Men only are for real men. Only. Boys need not apply." Fam, that says a lot right there. Thank you for going and standing up and smacking somebody from a comedian making a joke at a event. And then you have super progressive and world freaking, I don't even want, Jamal Bauman, teachable moment. Don't joke about a Black woman's hair. right? It's
Yeah.
like they're okaying this. They're justifying stuff.
Yeah, and they're using identity politics to justify it.
Yes.
So there's justified violence. But this is the same mentality that other people have where they're like, punch a Nazi, but it's like, well then, but who's a Nazi? Because sure, I agree with that in the premise. If you have an Azov battalion member in front of me and this piece of shit is in my presence, yeah, I might want to punch the Nazi. But if you're calling a Trump supporter a Nazi, two very different things here. What does that mean? And like, this is why I didn't even want to get into this, because it's like, I don't even believe the thing is real. But if perception is reality, which to a lot of Americans it is, and what they saw is Will Smith doing this with zero accountability and everybody saying, good job, you're defending your woman. It's kind of like, well, now anybody's at risk to being punched and being like applauded if they like you enough, right? If society likes you enough. Because if it was some right-winger that did that, you bet your ass they wouldn't have the same reaction at all.
Yeah.
At all. You know that for a fact they wouldn't.
If Kid Rock went up there and smacked Chris Rock, you know what I'm saying? And that's the thing. We saw a tweet that said it said literally, fam, let me know when Will Smith smacks Kid Rock, not Chris Rock. And here it is. It's like justification across the board.
Or vice versa.
And this seems to be a little bit just like psyopy of sorts, or programming of sorts. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like justification
100%.
of violence of people who think differently than you. This seems like more of a tactic to keep people divided than anything else. It really does. I mean, I'm just saying that, and just seeing the lawmakers out there, squad members like Presley and Bauman go out there and justify it. Okay, all right, yeah, go ahead and do that. That's a teachable moment. Don't be a comedian talking shit at an event about.
Well, don't be a politician then, because if you're going to okay the violence on this dude, how about the violence against one of you guys in terms of throwing an egg or throwing a tomato or doing something, you know, protesting loudly, whatever it is that people consider, that AOC considered violent, because she considered tweets violent, whatever that may be. So the public then is allowed to do it, right? Because you're a politician, and it's not even saying something we don't like. It's legislation. It's things that you know make a difference in people's lives. So maybe you're more vulnerable, but they don't think they're vulnerable because they know that they're a higher class and that they're untouchable. And that's why these people are allowed to get away with this, because they're celebrities and because they're politicians. But if any old Joe Schmo went out and did that, you bet your ass the reactions would be different.
Best meme yesterday was it showed like a picture of, you know, Will Smith, the same meme that I think this is Trey's meme. They all took Trey's meme. It had a meme and it had, you know, Will Smith smacking Chris Rock. And the very next part of the meme down below was Chris Rock standing up there going, thank God I was vaccinated, because that could have been a hell of a lot worse.
Anyway.
The Oscars brought to you by biotech and Pfizer. Just remember that too, fam. Trey Wright left into the super contribution. I thought the same exact thing, Fee. It's stage hogwash. I'm definitely not selling my soul to Hollywood. I'm independent all the way when I make movies. Also, Stewart was robbed. The Academy don't care about craft. End of rant. That is from Trey Wright. Trey, the movie man, says it was a robbery. I just was amazed. Like the whole time, I'm like, didn't he just assault him? Shouldn't he be arrested? Like, where are the cops not walking in going, you know, hey, Mr. Smith, you're going to have to come with us. Please put your hands behind your back. Right?
All right, fam. We've been on this subject way too long for my liking.
All right. Fam had enough of it, but I just wanted to talk about it. Really quickly, a little quick section over here. Thank you to everybody who's joined in the Rockfin right now. Over 100 people. That is awesome. 233 people on the YouTubes, guys. Like, hit the thumbs up, share it out there. You guys are doing a great job, but we are being shadow banned, demonetized, the whole 9 yards. It's been going on for quite some time, but you guys have been awesome about the whole thing. So the second section of the day is the Houthis bombing a Saudi Arabian oil depot. The other day, and this is after we just heard recently, and we did a little story on it last week, that Biden was giving extra missile defense systems and missiles to Saudi Arabia to ease the tensions, to maybe loosen up the prices on the gas prices. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, MBS, here's some missiles. How much is that oil again? One of those situations. And we even said, like, all those weapons that are being sold or given to the Saudis are going to be used to kill children in Yemen. So the Houthis have stricken back. Fam, I didn't put it into the folder. Did you see the huge protest in Sana'a in Yemen? Unbelievable, fam. Thousands and thousands of people. I just saw it this morning. I should have thrown it in there, but it was just ridiculous. All Houthis supporting the Houthis, whatnot. So the Houthis, here it is from Al Jazeera, Saudi Arabia, Saudi's Aramco, which is their state-owned oil corporation, was hit by a Houthi attack. Saudi Arabia announces military operation in Yemen following series of drone and rocket attacks on the kingdom. So they got the weapons, and the Houthis said, you know, we ain't backing down from you. And they sent it in to the heart of Saudi Arabia, and they hit them again. Yemen's Houthis rebels have acknowledged a series of attacks on Saudi Arabia after state media in the kingdom reported rocket and drone strikes targeting an oil depot in Jeddah and other facilities in Riyadh. A huge plume of black smoke was seen rising from the plant of Jeddah as the city prepared to host a Formula One race on Sunday. While Saudi Arabia, a state-run Saudi Aramco, did not immediately acknowledge the blaze, it appeared to be centered on a fuel depot that the Houthis have previously targeted. So this time they got it. Fam, I see you put in a Yemen cruise missile. Was that me?
I didn't do that.
The dirty war on Yemen is sustained by the whole world, minus Iran and Syria, pretending that an exile in Riyadh president and the coalition government in Sana'a is just rebels or Houthis. So what they're saying, this is something we talked about earlier, is that Hadi, you know, he's living in Riyadh. He's living in Saudi Arabia, and yet he's supposedly the leader of Yemen. And all those Houthis, all the people who support the Houthis in Sana'a, overwhelmingly, fam, they're just rebels. And if you look at blue check mark Twitter and you look at all the little, you know, imperialist cucks, you'll see them always just blaming the Houthis. Iranian-backed forces, fam. The Houthis are bad. Here's Dennis Ross saying, today the Houthis attacked an Aramco facility in Jeddah, amid by the Iranians with no interest in peace. The administration needs a strategy for the post-JCPOA. Iran will provide more of its proxies after getting sanctions relief, and it sees no risk in doing so. We must alter that view. And Scott Ritter replies, poor Saudis, just sitting there minding their own business when out of the blue, wham, the damn Houthis hit them for no reason. Very sarcastic tweet. I loved it, fam. But that's the whole thing. The way they spell this out, this is an Iranian proxies. These are rebels. They're doing no well. We got to do more. Haven't you done enough? But the mainstream media is not on it. They're not talking about how many children in Yemen die every year, how they get, you know, either killed or maimed by bombs, how many of them are being starved out, no medical attention. The blockade is still going on, and that's why they took to the streets, fam.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how these people just lie. I mean, they just lie. I mean, this is Yemen. Where is the outrage for these? I mean, Yemen is the worst humanitarian crisis in modern history. I don't understand why there's not these flags everywhere, why there's not these drives. Today there was somebody shared a video of them holding some sort of refugee funding drive or something where they were going to raise funds for Ukrainian refugees, which you know where all of that ends up. That ends up in like weapons for these neo-Nazis, and it really doesn't do very much for the people of Ukraine at all. Like this war is hurting them. So when you look at the Saudi Arabia situation, where Saudi Arabia pretends to be this innocent, non-radical, totalitarian type of government, it's just bullshit. And it's just the same type of vilification that you have on the Houthis is what you have on Hamas and what you have on any of these opposition fighters to the funded, US-backed Saudi Arabian or Israeli regimes.
Yeah. So just really and Oz, I dropped a link in slide number 35, which is just going to show you the sides of the crowds in Sana'a. But just talking about it, the hypocrisy, I wanted to point this out, fam, because they keep doing this. At the end of the day, when nation states, if they even exist, or it's just a year, or whatever the case may be, when they start playing games, athletes or events always suffer, right? Like right now, the Russian team is supposedly not allowed to go to Qatar to play in the World Cup in the next World Cup. They removed Russian athletes. I think the Wimbledon situation, I don't know if that's straightened out. Remember, the number one player, his name is Medvedev. Supposedly, he had to talk to the presidents and the people on the council of the Wimbledon Association and denounce Putin to play in the tournament. Literally, he had to do shit like that. And that's what they're doing right now. They're taking it out on players. And it says, with that being said, I haven't even mentioned the missile strike. F1 should not be racing in countries where people get hurt by missiles. I'm sure that there are better options who also offers a safer racetrack. We don't race in Russia because of war. Let's not race in Saudi Arabia. And then the F1, after canceling a race in Russia over Ukraine, is happy to race in Saudi Arabia this weekend. Saudis have been slaughtering the people of Yemen since 2015, simply because the Houthis opposed the Saudi puppet in Yemen, fam. So they had this big race anyways. They said they couldn't do in Russia, but yet they did it in Saudi Arabia.
I mean, what do they expect? People to continue supporting these puppet regimes?
Well, Oz, if you can bring up that Twitter I just put up in slide 35, fam, you can see the blockade and what's going on here. Take a look at this. Get a little volume if you can, Osland. And what do you think about that? How's that good? It's lethal.
Wow.
Ridiculous, huh, fam?
That's a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, that's what's going on in Yemen. And it's not going to end. It seems like a lot of people want them to pick it up. But here's the one of the issues, one of the biggest problems, fam, is that the American people are not engaged whatsoever. They have their heads in the sand. They're not, you know what I'm saying? They put whatever in their bio, what they're told to put in their bio. Now it's the slap. Last week it was Ukraine. Before that, it was, the put a vaccine, put a needle in there, whatever the case may be. It's ridiculous because they just go along with whatever they're told. And they have no idea what's going on in these other countries, especially in Yemen right now. If you're outraged about Ukraine and you're not outraged about Yemen, I ain't got nothing to say to you, pal.
Yeah, no, they're sheep, and that's kind of what empires rely on. They rely on sheep. They rely on useful idiots. They rely on those who want a career to perpetuate the same narratives, and that's how the cookie crumbles, fam. That's how it functions. Guys, make sure to like and share this part in particular, because this is going to be kind of like a very specific subject we're tackling here. Because we've talked about this before. We talked about Hunter Biden and Burisma. We've talked about how Igor Kolomoisky is actually the major owner of Burisma and how he sort of had these connections with Hunter Biden. We also talked about how the connections with Zelensky and Igor Kolomoisky and the Azov Battalion, and the funding and how he was created essentially to run under the Party of the Servant of the People, which was the same name as his show that he did. So thankfully, we didn't have to see Zelensky last night. I thought they were going to give him an Oscar, but they snubbed him. So I want to talk about Hunter Biden's now confirmed ties to the millions in funding for U.S. biolabs in Ukraine. So it wasn't just the Burisma ties and the holdings, and it wasn't just the laptop. It was what has been found, especially since we've been talking about the U.S. and Victoria Nuland admitting that they have biological research facilities. And so, you know,
research, research.
Yeah, and just shifting the blame and the conversation to, well, Putin, and we don't want Russia to get their hands on it. Well, there are very, very huge ties to Hunter Biden funding these biolabs. And by the way, of course, that implicates Joe Biden, that implicates several politicians, and the Department of Justice, though, you know, they're in on the whole thing. They're not going to do anything. They have to put this information out there, but you'll see how it's framed. So this is a Daily Mail, and they put out this article with basically just the whole rundown of everything. And they say Hunter Biden did help secure millions in funding for U.S. contractor in Ukraine, specializing in deadly pathogens research. Laptop emails reveal, raising more questions about the disgraced son of then vice president. So this is, of course, during the time when Joe Biden was vice president under the Obama administration. The Russian government held a press conference this past Thursday claiming that Hunter Biden helped finance a U.S. military bioweapons research program in Ukraine. We're going to watch some of that press conference. However, the allegations were branded as a brazen propaganda ploy to justify President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine and sow discord in the U.S. Which
can you get to the next slide? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. This is what they're going to say always. That the allegations were, of course, Russian propaganda. This is what they're saying, that this is conspiracy theory. But this is not conspiracy theory. They were saying that about the biolabs, the existence of them in the beginning. Remember, we were told that it was conspiracy theory. It wasn't, and neither is this. Emails and correspondence obtained by the Daily Mail from Hunter's abandoned laptop show the claims may well be true. So again, remember the laptop and the talk we didn't have access to during the election because they decided that it was too much and that it would hurt Joe Biden, and the media censored it, Twitter censored it. A lot of people got taken down for sharing that information, particularly from the New York Post. These emails, though, show that Hunter helped secure millions of dollars of funding to Biota, a Department of Defense contractor specializing in research on pandemic-causing disease. So, of course, this is bigger. We could be here all day to talk about, you know, tying this to the pandemic, but let's get to really what was in that document first. Hunter Biden allegedly introduced this Biota to corrupt Ukrainian politicians and the Ukrainian gas firm Burisma, which he sat on the board of, right? And he's introduced it for a, quote, science project involving high biosecurity level labs in Ukraine. The president's son and his colleagues invested $500,000 in the Biota through their firm Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners.
Here it is again.
They have raised several $1 million of funding for the company from investment giants, including Goldman Sachs. And they had to really do everything right to be able to get that money from Goldman Sachs. So the Russians went on, and the commander of the Russian Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Protection Forces said that there was a scheme of interaction between the U.S. government agencies and the Ukrainian biological objects, and pointed to the financing of such activities by structures close to the current U.S. leadership, which obviously is a problem. In particular, of course, as we mentioned, the Rosemont Seneca, which was headed by Hunter Biden and still is. So they've released a series of documents that I recommend everybody go through and read them, because you're not going to be able to see them very well on the screen. But this is an email from Mary Gutierrez and to Hunter Biden. And this is the Metabiota vice president. And this is on April 2014. She sent him a memo outlining how they could assert Ukrainians' cultural and economic independence from Russia. Thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule to meet with Kathy DeMio, a Metabiota executive, and I on Tuesday. We very much enjoyed our discussion. So what does a biolab have to do with asserting Ukraine's cultural and economic independence from Russia? Pasta, before I continue, I want to ask you, what does that have to do? What with cultural independence, fam?
What is your question, fam? I'm sorry.
What is Hunter Biden and this biological research facility have to do with exerting Ukraine's cultural independence from Russia? Because this has nothing to do.
I have no idea.
Exactly.
I have zero clue, fam. I thought it was a trick question. I'm like, what am I missing?
No, it's not a trick question. That's exactly the point. This is what they're saying. They're saying this is about Ukraine's cultural independence from Russia. So we're going to go and experiment with these pathogens and this biological research facility, which makes zero sense unless you start understanding the connections. So let's continue. So there is the contract from the Department of Defense, the awarding agency, awarding $18.4 million to Metabiota Incorporated. Okay, there it is, straight right there. The usspending.gov, you can go find it yourself. And so that the Department of Defense is obviously implicated. This is obviously not just Hunter Biden's doing. This is the Department of Defense involving in this funding. Now, Metabiota, according to the Daily Mail, has worked in Ukraine for Black & Veatch, a U.S. defense contractor with deep ties to the military intelligence agencies, which built secure labs in Ukraine and analyzed killer disease bioweapons. And of course, if you remember the interaction between Victoria Nuland and Marco Rubio, where they warned that Russian forces are trying to get control of these biological research facilities. They didn't call them biological weapons facilities, but that's exactly what they are. And admitting that they exist by saying that, but saying that they were afraid Putin would get to it. And so what's been discovered is that Hunter Biden and the Rosemont Seneca technology facility that he was ahead of raised millions of dollars for technological companies that would eventually take off and make them more money. And these technological companies, of course, dealt with these pathogens. And Metabiota was one of these firms or one of these companies. And you can see the emails between their colleagues on how they were going to just have how this was going to help Ukraine's independence and how it was going to become a tool for governments to look for outbreaks of infectious diseases. And granted, this is interesting considering that this is 2014 and the pandemic didn't happen until 2020. And so Mary Gutierrez, of course, wrote a memo to Hunter Biden, like we just said, that because of this whole thing, if they continued funding this, that it would assert Ukraine's cultural and economic independence from Russia. And we are kind of went over it, but she said, as promised, I prepared the attached memo, which provides an overview of Metabiota, our engagement in Ukraine, and how we can potentially leverage our team, networks, and concepts to assert Ukraine's cultural and economic independence from Russia and continued integration into Western society. So right here in 2014, in April of 2014, you have a motive. You have the Department of Defense involved. You have millions of dollars involved. You have the son of the then vice president, the current US president of the United States. Imagine Donald Trump being tied in this.
Yeah. Yes.
One. Two, this shows you that there is some sort of attempt to use some sort of biological weapons to perhaps, as many of us have suspected, plant a false flag. Now, this is me. Now, this is not what's in the document. This is me telling you. This, to me, infers that there was a plan to use a bioweapons created in Ukraine with U.S. funding, Department of Justice funding, to create a scenario where Ukraine could use said biological weapons to assert their independence from Russia. Because there's no way that that has anything to do with cultural independence unless you're talking about either biological warfare, a false flag operation, like we did in Syria, in the Duma type of situation, and manipulating it that way. So far, Pasta, I just want to hear what you think about what I just said.
Well, fam, you're not that far off, because there's been a lot of talk about the particular type of bioweapons that they are trying to create over here. Now, I don't think that it was the U.S. contracting it out to the Ukrainians to say, hey, we'll build you this weapons that will kill Russians. I think they were saying, we're going to build weapons and you're going to help us out, and then we're going to get rid of the Russians. Like, in other words, they were saying some of these bioweapons can really, we concentrate, like, as far as like, and I think that's what that maybe when we look at the whole, I don't want to talk about it now because we're not on Rockfin only and stuff like that, but with this whole situation. But we just went through for a couple of years with this whole unknown virus. Well, they were saying in some of these labs that they can actually target specific people, down to their race, down to their genetics.
Their DNA.
Your DNA. Like,
yes.
You know what I'm saying? And that's some crazy stuff. And that people would say, oh, you just got a tinfoil hat on. Like, no, this is very, very serious. They've been trying to work on these weapons for quite some time. And the whole thing, the whole craziness about it is, like, obviously, they used to say they used to work with these here in the States, and now they're denying working on any gain of function. But the whole process in which they give you the excuse, like, okay, these are research facilities, fam. We are researching cures for diseases. Well, how do you know how can you research a cure for a disease unless the disease exists? Well, don't ask us that question, because that's the whole thing. They create the disease to create the cure for the disease. And it's just mind-boggling when you think about it. There's a lot of dark stuff going on over here, fam. This is just more evidence to it. I don't think that Hunter Biden is involved in science. I don't think he likes science at all.
He's involved in the funding, though.
He's involved with the economics, because they did say cultural and economic dependence. And it was one of those things like, hey, the United States is going to watch our back. They're going to take us into NATO. We're going to be flush with the IMF loans and stuff because we're going to take care of Hunter. And that's that. We're going to play ball. And so he was just, his face got thrown. You know who else is involved in this stuff too, fam? And I hate to say it, George Soros, with a lot of these things that you're talking about right here. These particular lines over here, there's a Soros lines as well.
Oz, 47, actually, slide 47. So one back, we didn't get to go through that one. But Pasta, you're absolutely right. And this is the U.S. operation using Ukraine to do this. This is why I say that Ukraine ceased to be a sovereign nation in 2014, because remember, this is also during the Maidan coup and the intervention period. So how do you say that this is not a country that is mostly dominated by Western NATO interests? This is not a sovereign Ukraine. It stopped being a sovereign Ukraine at this point, and developing these bioweapons so close to Russia's border, that was always going to be a problem.
Yeah. I wish I knew for sure that I can really, give us
what you said too is real about the DNA. I saw that. I wanted to put it in, I think, a few weeks ago. Maybe I'll put it in next time, because this stuff gets really deep. So
if it is the way you said it is, fam, where it's Putin, realizing, hey, I'm not playing with these globalists anymore. I'm done with these assholes. And is now going to be like, we're going in there, we're wiping out your biolabs, we're going to denazify the country, and that's it. You're not going to have a puppet on my border anymore, and you're not going to kill ethnic Russians on a daily basis. It's not happening. The biolabs are something that could put him over the top. Somebody was asking me that question They were like literally, and I heard we went out this weekend, fam. You can talk to about it with Steve later. We met a lady who was really into Rumble and Steve Bannon. She asked us if we believed in adrenochrome. That's what she asked us. She, was like talking about like what Putin is doing is right. And he's getting rid of these biolabs that exist. This crap's been going on with these people for so long. You know what I'm saying?
It has been going on for a long time.
So for a while.
Yeah. So this Gutierrez lady, Mary Gutierrez, that was in the emails, had a leading role in the Metabiotics Ukraine operation. She met with other executives, the Ukrainian military officials, etc., on October 2016 to, quote, discuss the cooperation and surveillance and prevention of especially dangerous infectious diseases, including zoonotic diseases in Ukraine and neighboring countries, according to a US 16 report by Science and Technology Center in Ukraine. Hunter, of course, was on the board of Burisma at this time, as we all know, and it was owned by Mykolay Zlotkevsky, which we know is actually owned above that by Igor Kolomoisky. And 4 days after Gutierrez's April 2014 email, Vadim Pozharsky wrote to Hunter revealing that the then vice president's son had pitched a science project involving Burisma and Metabiota in Ukraine. So Hunter is not a very smart guy. He's also an addict, especially at this time, from what we know now. And they're using him to be like the funder, like the bridge between the Department of Defense and of course the scientists, the people that are actually doing this. And you can look at this graph here by the Russians themselves, because they're very organized. They did this whole graph, and this is Russia's defense ministry that put this diagram out on Thursday with arrows connecting Biden, Soros, and the Democratic Party to Ukrainian biolabs. And they have right there the connections. Obviously it's in Russian, but you can still kind of see the CDC's involved. You have every major industry and Soros, as you mentioned, of course. And it's crazy. It's crazy, but they're alleging this. So it's not, if we were to say, oh, I think, the gain of function research is happening in this, it was happening then, people would say, well, where's your evidence? But here is what Russia is essentially asserting that. And it comes from this meeting too, and other meetings where on October 3rd and 4th of 2016, and Leave Ukraine, a trilateral meeting with representatives of Ukraine, Poland, and the US of America convened to discuss regional collaboration of biological security, safety, and surveillance. And attendees included government scientific experts who discussed regional cooperation and surveillance and prevention of especially dangerous infectious diseases. And you guys can see that they had this meeting, highlights and accomplishments. And so it included a chief veterinary officer of the National Veterinary Research Institute in Polway, Mr. W. Skorupski, who led the Polish delegation, which included subject matter experts from the same organization. And it's crazy, but the meeting focused on existing frameworks, regulatory coordination, and ongoing cooperative projects in research, surveillance, and diagnostics of a number of dangerous diseases, such as avian influenza, leptospirosis, Crimea, Congo, hemorrhagic fever, and brucellosis. A special session was devoted to the current increase in cases of African swine fever. So, I mean, we're on YouTube right now. So, but that is very suspect. Why are all these, and Putin has asserted that there were other type of coronaviruses as well. The Russians have asserted as much. That is coming from the Russian Department of Defense, that they were doing this gain of function research. So why was that happening 6 years ago, 4 years before the pandemic? That's a little bit suspect to me.
Well,
to say the least,
Event
guys.
201 was a suspect too as well, but no matter how many times, you know, the lockstep doctrine, there's all these things that came out years before we went through this situation. But fam, please take your tinfoil hat off, you Trumping, Nazis supporting crazy conspiracy theorist girl.
So just a reminder, this is the letter to from John DeLoach to Hunter Biden talking about the $500,000 in investment in Metabiota through Rosemont Seneca, and how they raise even more money for giants, including Goldman Sachs. And they wanted to really have their shit together because they needed to get that deal. They really needed to get that deal to get this through. And there's the emails between Hunter and that's it. And the Rosemont Seneca, again, discussing how they were monitoring medical data that could become an essential tool for government and companies looking to spot outbreaks of infectious diseases. So the United States was interested in spotting outbreaks of infectious diseases long before this pandemic, which is interesting. Which is interesting, guys. And I think we will do a segment tying a lot of this together. That's why I said that, because I wanted to lay this out first. And when we do that segment, obviously, guys, it's going to have to be Rockfin only. So I'm going to break a little bit with this video. This is a video of the Russian side of things. Now, the Russians are accusing Hunter Biden of this directly. And here's a video of them doing that. I believe it's Sergei Lavrov as well.
Sergei Lavrov.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Поступающие материалы позволяют проследить схему взаимодействия органов США с украинскими биообъектами. Обращает на себя внимание причастность к финансированию указанной деятельности структур, близких к нынешнему руководству США. В частности, инвестиционного фонда Rosemont Seneca, который руководит Хантер Байден. Фонд обладает значительными финансовыми ресурсами в объеме не менее $2,4 миллиарда. При этом прослеживается тесная связь фонда с основными подрядчиками американского военного ведомства, включая Metabiota, которая наряду с Black & Twitch является основным поставщиком оборудования для биолабораторий Пентагона по всему миру. Масштабы программы впечатляют. Непосредственное участие в реализации, кроме военного ведомства, принимает Агентство США по международному развитию, Фонд Джорджа Сороса, Центр по контролю и профилактике заболеваний. Научное кураторство осуществляют ведущие исследовательские организации, включая Национальную лабораторию Волос-Аламоча, которая разрабатывала ядерное оружие в рамках Манхэттенского проекта. Вся эта деятельность осуществляется под полным контролем Пентагона.
No? We're muted?
We were muted.
Okay, so even though the Department of Defense is admitting this, they have to defend the State Department narrative. So they're going to say this is mostly Russian propaganda, and their position is that there's nothing nefarious here, that this is a pandemic early warning research, and that they don't know for sure what was going on. But the question remains, one of these representatives said, why is Hunter Biden in the middle of all this? Why is a disgraced son of a vice president at the heart of this? The guy with no discernible skills and a cocaine habit. I mean, yeah, because he's the son of Joe Biden and he's a useful idiot. I mean, that's what I think this is, right? And the Pozharsky, who I read about in the last slide, said that his email to Hunter Biden, that they had encountered this similar biological research before in his former job as a Ukrainian government official. And they claimed that BNV worked on similar or the same projects as the proposed contract for Metabiota. So this isn't the first time these people involved have worked on these projects. And of course, as we showed you already, the government records show the Department of Defense awarded $18.4 million contract to Metabiota between February 2014 and November 2016, with $307,091 earmarked for Ukraine research projects. The U.S. Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the DTRA, also commissioned by the BNV to build a biological safety level 3 laboratory in Odessa, Ukraine in 2010, which provided enhanced equipment and training, effectively, safely, and securely identify especially dangerous pathogens. So that happened. And then, so there in this, you can see that right here in this email thread in May 2014, the RSTP partner Sherwin, and his name was Eric Sherwin, that he was communicating with Joe Biden, suggested that there are obviously some real potential synergies between Zhou's husband's work at the CDC and what Metabiota does. Something to think about. So this is, again, Zhou was that person that was called, I believe, the bat lady during the COVID
Coronavirus
outbreak. And she, because that they said that was the person where that came from. And this is another email in another slide of the deep ties between Metabiota and the Department of Defense. Hunter's RSTP business partner, Rob Walker, said he would have a friend reached out to the DOD on down the low in order to prove the company's bona fide to the top prospective investors, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, in October of 2014. So like I said, they needed to get this funding and from Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. So in the email, he says that they have to be they have to have all their ducks in a row. They have to have everything perfect in order to get this this funding. So let me see what else.
Dark, deep, dirty, corrupt secrets of Ukraine, all tying back to everything that's going on right now. Woo.
And just for reference, RSTP is a subsidiary of Rosemont Capital, which was the investment company that Hunter Biden founded, and also had John Kerry's stepped on Chris Hines in 2009. And the other thing, of course, that we could go into further next time is that Metabiota has close ties with the Wuhan Institute of Virology, suspected to be the source of the COVID-19 outbreak. The Wuhan Institute of Biology was a hotspot for controversial gain-of-function research that can create super strength viruses. Chinese scientists performed gain-of-function research of coronaviruses at the Wuhan lab, working alongside US-backed organization EcoHealth Alliance that has since drawn intense scrutiny over its coronavirus research since the COVID-19 pandemic. And these Chinese scientists, of course, were US-funded biolabs in Wuhan. So, and the researchers from the Wuhan Institute, Metabiota and EcoHealth Alliance published a study in 2014 on infectious diseases from bats in China. And that Xi Zhengli, the world, the Wuhan Institute virology director of the Center for Emerging Infectious Diseases, is the one actually that became dubbed the Bat Lady for her central role in bat coronavirus research.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, fam.
All these ties are there. This is extremely interesting. Yeah. This is this is just the beginning of what is there. Now you have to go into what exactly.
We had all this information before, though, right? We couldn't do it, but every time you try to speak about this, I mean, they literally banned people, gave people strikes. I think we got a strike on one of the things we did, right? When it came to, I can't even remember. I'm pretty sure it was. We were talking about Hunter and Burisma before it was cool, almost 4 years ago, fam. Yeah. We were screaming about it. We were screaming about Adam Schiff and, Kolomoisky and Zelensky and the Azov Battalion and John Kerry's son and Adam Schiff and his relation and Nancy Pelosi. It's all there. It's one of the most corrupt countries in the world, if not the most corrupt country in the world. And, we were doing dirty, dark things in there as well. And now it's all coming out. But it's, once again, when are people like you talk to a lot of progressives and say, hey, man, so what do you think about Joe Biden? Well, anything's better than Trump. They're still on that. They'll let these people commit murder and get away with everything just because they're playing team sports. And there's a lot of people in this country, because Donald Trump was Donald Trump and they had TDS, they'll still okay and say, well, it's not really proven what Hunter Biden is, what his
you have the money ties. You have the money ties from the Department of Defense. You have Hunter Biden sitting on the Seneca board. You have, actually funding the Seneca company. You have him sitting on the board of Burisma. You have John Kerry's son involved in Seneca. You have these scientists with emailing Hunter Biden and these investment people and getting the funding for Goldman Sachs and whatever. What was the other one? And then you have the full-on people that were also involved in the pandemic as well. So you can make your own conclusions, but what we stated was a bunch of documents with facts. Now, there are also documents that show that some of these viruses that they were looking up, these pathogens, were animal related, which is why they had the veterinary doctors there, because they're experimenting on these animals, and so they have to have veterinarians in there. So it's interesting in the context of the pandemic and also in the context of Ukraine. This is why I say that there's no such thing as a incident that is by itself, right? An isolated incident. When it comes to U.S. foreign policy, anything like that, there's no such thing as I'm an anti-imperialist and I'm against this Russia-Ukraine situation, and I'm against Putin's imperialism too. You have to understand power. And I think a lot of these progressive pasta, as you said before, don't understand power. They don't understand that you cannot equate what Putin is doing to what the United States is doing. And then also you throw in the pandemic, the gain-of-function research, you throw in all of this, that they were trying to get rid of this, and that they were afraid of Russians exposing this, and you throw in what Russia is doing, putting their foot down against NATO and exposing this as well. And of course, Hunter Biden's Burisma story scandal that we weren't allowed to talk about. And then you have the whole thing, because again, the United States is an empire. They're seeking to gain control. And they told you as much in April of 2014 in those emails, that through this biological research, they could guarantee an attempt to gain Ukraine's sovereignty and independence from Russia. So you have a video?
Well, yeah, you couldn't report any of this stuff. You know why? Because it was all unverified. Matt Orff, ladies and gentlemen, otherwise known as Orphalia. Yeah,
yes.
Incriminating evidence allegedly found on a laptop belonging to Biden.
Some sort of Russian disinformation campaign effort.
One eternity later.
Biden emails finally authenticated according to the New York Times. It's rewind time.
It's a lie.
Altered or fake, unverified emails.
The story did not quite land due to the lack of verification.
Listen.
Can't be verified.
What can't be verified?
The laptop.
Why do you say that?
Well, because it can't be verified.
I don't really want to report this. This is one of the most powerful families in Washington.
Liz, I'm a journalist.
Okay, I would love if you guys would start doing that verification.
No, we're not going to do your work for you.
It's a journalist's
Contrary.
job.
Not anymore.
For all we know, these emails are made up.
Not really stories, just pure distractions. No serious journalist should fall for it.
It's a journalist's job to find out if this is verified.
The bottom line is we cannot confirm the story.
Experts say the emails cannot be authenticated.
The mainstream media is not reporting on this story because we can't authenticate this material.
The Hunter Biden laptop material is genuine.
This is a classic example of the right-wing media machine.
It just lacks credibility. The fact that it appeared in the New York Post.
The only place low enough to put this orphan bastard story in print.
Obvious disinformation.
It is so obviously a Russian operation.
So obviously disinformation.
So obviously a Russian plot. Tell me why it's so obviously a Russian plot to you.
This is just classic textbook Soviet-Russian tradecraft at work.
Right, exactly. And this is classic, very classic Russian disinformation tactic.
Your classic disinformation campaign.
We shouldn't look at it as anything other than a Russian disinformation operation.
Known Kremlin disinformation.
Russians would be my #1 guess.
Obviously, Russia.
Russian disinformation operation.
Russian disinformation.
Pushing Russian disinformation.
It does bear the hallmarks of Russian disinformation.
Stop being an unwitting idiot.
Hunter Biden's laptop looks like it's tied to Vladimir Putin in Moscow.
Is that laptop yours?
I don't know. I truly...
You don't know?
The serious answer is that I truly do not know the answer to that.
Did you leave a laptop with a repairman
Not
in
that
Wilmington?
I remember.
Not that you remember?
No. I truly don't know.
Are you missing a laptop?
Not that I know of.
What?
This whole operation looks right out of the Kremlin playbook.
The playbook of Russian disinformation.
Russian disinformation put into the haystack.
Russian disinfo.
Sounds like bullshit. I mean, who takes a laptop with their most personal information, drops it off, and never comes back for it?
You read the book and you'll realize that I wasn't keeping tabs on possessions very well for about a 4-year period of time.
A Russian disinformation campaign.
Disinformation from the Russians. Putin is trying very hard to spread disinformation about Joe Biden.
The Biden campaign says this is Russian disinformation.
There's overwhelming evidence that the Russians are engaged.
It's a Russian plan.
Russian disinformation.
Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
So could have been yours.
Of course, certainly.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
History will expose you all as fools and useful idiots for the Russians. The idiocy, the sheer idiocy.
50 former intelligence officials signed on to a letter yesterday saying that the New York Post story about Hunter Biden's emails has all of the classic earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign.
Russia, Giuliani.
Don't trust anything that he's telling you. This is Russian disinformation. Russian disinformation campaign.
Russian disinformation.
Russian disinformation campaign. Russian disinformation meant to harm our democracy.
Disinformation by the Russians.
The fruits of a foreign intelligence operation.
Part of that bigger Russian disinformation effort.
A Russian intelligence operation.
Connected to an ongoing Russian disinformation effort.
Linked to a foreign intelligence operation.
Connected to an ongoing Russian disinformation effort.
Tied to an ongoing Russian disinformation effort.
Connected to a Russian disinformation campaign.
Linked to a foreign intelligence operation.
Likely coming from Russian intelligence.
To people familiar with the matter told NBC News.
We now know that Russian disinformation or foreign disinformation or even campaign disinformation period is as dangerous to our democracy as anything exposed in these emails.
Fam.
And that was when they were more focused on finding something, dirty on him, like money ties to whatever, to just Burisma and gas. This is money ties to bioweapons, to funding of bioweapons. And it's way bigger than Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to this. The U.S. government is clearly involved. In spite of their denial, they were involved in the funding of these biolabs. Hunter Biden is now, you can see how that's a part of this funding was happening. And Vladimir Putin and Russia are exposing all of this simultaneously while pushing back against the empire. It's kind of crazy, fam, how, and I will say this, I will boast about this. We have been on the right side of these issues for a long time. And so many people have said, you're a right winger, you're this, you're a Putin, whatever. But this is now coming full circle. All of these things are sort of hitting this pinnacle. And it's funny how they're all interconnected. And I think, our audience is very aware of how this is. But so many people are just starting on this journey where they're just starting to talk about unified gender. They're just starting to understand the Hunter Biden thing. The reason they were so adamant about blocking that story wasn't about the gas company ties. It was about this.
So, fam, I wanted to bring a video with some real misinformation or disinformation. So I have it for you.
Oh God.
You've seen this. This is crazy shit. And Oz, make sure we play it to the very end, because pay attention to the very end of it. Take a look.
If you don't glow the sky, I will die. If you don't glow the sky, Mom will cry.
Oh my God.
If you don't glow the sky, he'll lose home. If you don't glow the sky, they'll be doomed. If you don't glow the sky will still fight. If you don't glow the sky, will fail the night. If you don't glow the sky, he might win. Now look in the eyes and sink again.
If you don't close the sky. Now listen.
I would like to invite to the stage Bill Crystal, who is the founding director of Defending Democracy Together.
Oh, fam, at the very end, please come to the stage.
I will die if
At the end, he literally says, at the Sarah McLachlan form of if you don't close the sky, they will die.
If you don't start World War III, we will die. No, moron. If you start World War III, everybody will die. Come on.
And then they
Jesus
go,
Christ.
will Bill Crystal please come to the stage? Bill Crystal. I mean, you can't make this shit up, fam. We live in a cartoon.
We do. We do live in somebody's fucked up little child aliens cartoon.
We do. Anyways, fam, that's all I got for today. You got anything else? We do have a super rate from Eric Benitez. Thank you for the super rate contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch.
Fam, are you ready to announce what you'll be doing?
With what?
Soon?
Tomorrow?
What do you mean? No.
With what?
What are you going to be doing in California? Have you talked about that?
Sorry. April 10th, I will be one of the MCs at the Defeat the Mandates rally. And I don't want to say about who I'm going to have a chance to announce, because I don't know if they'll move that around. I don't want to jinx anything. But I was very surprised on the list on who I get a chance to announce. And I've already started reaching out to people that are going to be there. So it's going to be awesome. It is April 10th in Los Angeles. Defeat the Mandates. You can go to thehighwire.com to watch it live, or you can just come on down to LA. It's going to be really, really cool. I'm really excited about it, fam, because it's going to be a big event. It's going to be the biggest event I'm going to be able to MC. The other, I know Ben Swan is also one of the MCs. Ben Swan will be there as well. A lot of the doctors will be there again. Dr. McCullough, Dr. Malone, Dr. Pierre Corey, Dr. Urso, Dr. Ryan Cole, Dr. Heather Gessling, all will be there. Riza Islam will be there too as well again. Max Blumenthal is supposed to be there. Jimmy Dore is supposed to be there. And Robert Kennedy Jr. is supposed to be there. So it's a star-studded cast again, fam. And this is April 10th in Los Angeles, the Defeat the Mandates rally. Because there are still mandates going on. If you still work in the medical industry, probably 95% of the times you have to be have the boop boop. If some airlines are still doing it. Fam, we lost a case the other day in the court. We still have to wear our mask on the planes.
So stupid.
It is.
Also, I will be then, he's going to be there. I'm going to be going to DC for the Julian Assange 30-year anniversary of him being in Belmarsh, and of course with what's happened recently with the extradition, the denial of the appeal for extradition. It is extremely important to cover that, so I'll be covering that as well with the crew over there. And I'm excited to go meet with these people, with our fans, and say hi to everybody. There is and that's on the 11th. That's on the 11th. The Julian Assange anniversary protest, and that will be on a Monday. I would like to go to both, but that's it's impossible. So Pasta will be covering that. I'll be covering the other. So anything you give to help us out would be absolutely great, because we do this independently. And holy crap, man, the gas prices of the airline tickets are out of control. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. Thanks for all the support you guys give. We really appreciate it. And thank you for allowing us to continue to do this work.
Yeah. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock special power panel. Tomorrow, I'll be doing a power panel, and it will be Sean Stone, Scott Ritter, Jimmy Dore, and maybe another special guest. We don't know yet if that special guest is going to be there, but those three alone. Sean Stone, if you don't know who he is, he's from Watching the Hawks. He's a great journalist. He's making movies. He's the son of Oliver Stone. He's really making a name for himself. He has a Rockfin channel. Go over and subscribe to Sean Stone. Scott Ritter, as you know, a big name, ex-weapons inspector from back in the days. He was just on the Gray Zone recently, and I believe Franco had him on not too long ago. And also then Jimmy Dore, who has been a friend of the show, been on several times. So we're going to talk a little bit of Ukraine tomorrow with that power panel.
That's an awesome panel. What time?
1 p.m. Pacific.
1 p.m. Pacific, 4 Eastern.
Yep.
So guys, please make sure to check it out. Pasta, if you have a thumbnail for that, I will share it out so the fans know that that's happening. And that's going to be both on YouTube and Rockfin, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, awesome. Okay, guys. Thanks so much.
For Pasta Jardula.
Dear Rolla.
And Oz with the Overalls fam.
I'm go out.
Bye, everybody.